We are live. Greetings, everyone. Greetings, my fellow Nigerians, wherever you are, whether in Nigeria or in the diaspora, anywhere around the world. We'll bring you one greetings right here from Jefferson City, Missouri, the U.S. Central Time. It's currently 3 p.m. U.S. Central Time and 4 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. And this is a weekly show called Nigerian Constitution and Your Right. Nigerian Constitution, Know Your Right, hosted every Tuesday, 9 p.m. Nigerian time, powered by the Global Coalition for Security and Democracy in Nigeria. I am your humble anchor, Dr. Edmond Ikeh. Welcome to the show. I'm happy to have you. And today we'll have some guests joining us. Some faces are familiar. If you're a regular in this show, you definitely know our studio guests for today's show. And today's topic is going to be the power of the people, people's power. So it's very important that you stay alert and learn and claim your right as a human being, claim your right as a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and know that you as an individual, you have certain powers. And that is what we're going to talk about today, focusing on Section 13 and Section 14 of our Constitution, that is the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. If you watched last Tuesday, I announced that this Tuesday, being the first Tuesday in October, we'll be starting a new chapter, that's chapter 2, because we just finished chapter 1 last week, Tuesday, and chapter 2 is going to be focused on the fundamental objective and directive or principles of state policy. That's going to be what chapter 2 is all going to be about. And it's about, I think chapter 2 contains about 12 or 13 sections. And we're going to run through those sections every week until we complete that. And we'll jump on to the next thing. All right. So without further ado, I will welcome my guests to the stream and to the show so that they can introduce themselves, and let's get the party started. Barrister Joseph, can you say hello? Hello, by the way. Hello, UC Maxwell. I'm happy to see you guys. My regular guest to this show. You have always been amazing. So let's start with Barrister Joseph. Please say hello to the people and welcome to the show.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. As you all know, I'm your regular guest, Barrister Joseph Mtemdo Bagyo, legal practitioner based here in Nigeria, and also the Secretary of the Nigerian Bar Association, Makurdi Branch, Benue State, Nigeria, West Africa. Thank you for having me, Doctor.
Thank you for coming. It's always good to have you here. You know, maybe one day I'll declare you become the co-host of the show, you know. I'll introduce you as Barrister Joseph Tendo Bagyo, the co-host of this great show. All right. Please, UC Maxwell, can you unmute yourself and say hello to the people?
Hello, good evening to everybody. I believe that I'm very much audible. My name is UC Maxwell. I am a student of law. Of course, I've been a guest on this show, and it's a pleasure to be here again with you. Thank you.
I think UC Maxwell is having some connection issue because your voice is cracking, going in and out. But thank you very much for introducing yourself. Hopefully your connection becomes stronger as we go along the show. All right. My people, please take a few minutes, take a few seconds to share the link, invite your friends, invite your neighbor, even invite your enemy that is in Nigerian, so that they shall learn about what is written in the Constitution, to understand the law better, and to understand that the power belongs to the people, because that is essentially the meat of the matter in today's conversation. All right. So, UC Maxwell, can you tell us what chapter section 13 is just few lines. So can you like tell us the summation. What does Section 13 of the Constitution essentially saying to Nigerians? Or what is it trying to say?
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me now?
Hmm?
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible, yes.
Okay, all right. Section 10 of the Constitution, basically, which is the introductory section of Chapter 2, just simply mandates, it actually mandates all spheres of governance, all arms of governance, the legislature, the executive, the judiciary, and all other areas of government to simply apply all sections which have been provided under Chapter 2. Every section that have been provided under Chapter 2 must actually be adhered by all of government, be it the executive, the legislature, the judiciary. And Chapter 2 has provided for a lot of sections which actually talks about how governments must implement policies in different areas, economic policies, social policies, political policies, whatever they may be, to strengthen governance and, of course, to affect the lives of citizens. So that's basically what Section 13 talks about, simply that all duties and responsibilities of all organs of government must conform to every provision under Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution. And of course, that talks about the the principles, the fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy, simply.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, UC Maxwell. Barrister Joseph, you had a connection problem. I think you dropped for a minute, and I added you back to the stream. So I don't know if you got everything you said, because we're trying to have him give us the gist of the matter of what Section 13 of the Constitution is saying, and that was he just gave us a quick summary of that. Please, is there anything you want to add to what Section 13 is trying to tell Nigerians, Barrister Joseph?
Well, just like UC Maxwell rightly said, Section 13 of the Constitution, in a simple parlance, is interpreted to mean that all organs of government, all agencies of government, all parastatals of government, so to speak, must act in conformity with the provisions of the Constitution. By that, there is nobody, no arms of government that is supposed to act ultra-vires or act contrary to the provisions of the Constitution. In essence, their duties, their actions, or their obligations, so to speak, must be guided by the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999. So it's a Section 13
I think the Barrister Joseph is having a connection problem because it seems he is frozen at the moment. Barrister Joseph. Barrister Joseph, are you still with us? All right, before the Barrister Joseph gets back online, I'll move on to UC Maxwell. UC Maxwell, you give us a good, beautiful summary of what Section 13 is talking about. So this Section 13 gave us informed us as Nigerians, because we may have not known before, but now Section 13 is telling us as Nigerians, by the way, do you know every arms of government is subject to this Section 13 and is supposed to do everything that this section is talking about, and subsequently to everything the Constitution as a whole is talking about. So would you say, in your observation as a Nigerian and as a legal mind, do you think that the legislative branch of government, the judicial branch of government, and the executive arm of government is following what the Constitution prescribed in Section 13. UC Maxwell.
Right. Yes. Just to answer your question, the Nigerian Constitution has a lot of loopholes, a lot of lacunas, I would like to say, because Chapter 2 of the Constitution, like I said, which provides for the fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy. Now, when you say fundamental objectives, these are the objectives that government must put at the fore of its policies. These are the principles which must put at the fore in order to make sure that there is good governance in the state of Nigeria, which affects the people directly or indirectly. The problem which I have with this particular chapter is that it is not enforceable in courts of law. Meaning that in the introductory part of Section 13, you would see that the Constitution drafters use the word shall. It shall be the duty, which makes it a mandatory duty on government to make sure that they see to the implementation of these directive principles and these fundamental objectives during governance. However, Chapter 2 of the Constitution is not enforceable, and you cannot force in government. What does it mean? If a government decides not to follow these directive principles or these fundamental objectives in the formulation of its policies, you cannot sue the government, because the government can be held responsible legally in any court of law, in any court of law in Nigeria. So now talk about, okay, that is one area of it. So now talk of the other side of it. If truly, irrespective of the enforceability of this chapter or not, is the current Nigerian government implementing the fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy? So to a certain extent, to a certain degree, I would say a very big no, they are not implementing it. But they do not, for instance, the current Buhari's government, which has been in power for over 7 years, failed to make sure that its appointments are in tandem with the provisions of Section 14, which probably because of this conversation will come to look at in-depthly. So they do not conform to Section 14, which provides that everybody who shall hold positions in Nigeria must come from different areas of Nigeria. It must be a selection in consideration with all ethnic groups, all regions, all states, and so on. So we see that there are a lot of violations of this section. We see that there are a lot of directive principles that are not being implemented, education-wise, social-wise, economic-wise. The question now becomes, how can they be held responsible since the entire chapter cannot actually be enforced in the court of law? So I think that is the problem with the idea of Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution.
Okay. Thank you very much, Yusuf. Just a follow-up question. From what you said, so we see the lacuna in the law and the inability of all arms of government to actually do their due diligence to implement what the Constitution said. So, and I think you're saying that there's a difficulty in holding them accountable, they cannot be held accountable fully in the court of law. Is that what you're implying?
Of course, you cannot sue the government for violating any provisions of the sections embedded in Chapter 2, except and unless they have anything to link up to the provisions of Chapter 4, which provides for the fundamental human rights. If you sue the government for anything under Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution, it must be directly linked to the violations of any of the fundamental human rights so provided under Chapter 4 of the Constitution, talking about the fundamental right to life, right to movement, right to peaceful assembly and association, right to religion, and the like. So you cannot hold them or Nigeria responsible for violating any fundamental principles so provided under Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution.
All right. Thank you very much for that clarification. All right. Barrister Joseph, you've had the response of UC Maxwell indicating that Chapter 2 of the Constitution is essentially not justiciable in the court of law. So what is your take on that as a legal practitioner in Nigeria? That is one. You've missed one of my questions because you're in and out, so I'll add an additional question to that after you answer this question. Unmute yourself, Barrister Joseph.
Yeah, I don't really know what is happening to network, but I think it's a bit stable now. So yes, I quite agree with my co-guest, UC Maxwell, about the non-justiciability of Chapter 2 of the Constitution. But in particular term, we are talking about Section 13 and Section 14, as far as this discourse is concerned. And I was saying that Section 13 is a provision where all organs of government derive their powers from, and they derive their powers from the Constitution. So they must act according to the provisions of the Constitution, so as to guarantee the rule of law in the country. That is the essence of that provision. So they are not supposed to do anything that is contrary to any laid down law by the Constitution or perhaps as enacted by the National Assembly. So that is it. And now coming to Chapter 4 of the Constitution, which is the section that has binded us, those leading us, and those of us who are the followers, in what I call, in what many constitutional law analysts term, and political analysts, so to speak, term as being the social contract between the government and the people, right? And sovereignty in this context belongs to the people, whom government derive their powers from. And as such, it is the duty, the protection of life and the security and the welfare of the people is the paramount duty of government. That is the impact of that Section 14. Now, if you now begin to read down, which is the content, the detailed content of Chapter 2, from Section 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, down to Section 21, under that Chapter 2, you'll find out the primary duty of government, the social contract of government, provision of education, harnessing the resources, and making the environment safe, making sure that all our social activities and all of it, just for the enjoyment of the content of Chapter 4. Sadly enough, Section 6, Subsection 6, Paragraph C of the Constitution now makes the content of Chapter 2 of our Constitution non-justiciable, meaning that even if the government does not provide all of this, we cannot sue them. However, there has been a contrary argument to some of this, the non-justiciability of this Section 16, Chapter 2, or particularly Section 6 sub 6, Paragraph C of the Constitution. And the argument is that most of the international treaties, most of the regional treaties or the continental treaties Nigeria is signatory to, particularly the African Charter on the right and welfare of the people, which has been reenacted as a legislation in Nigeria under the laws of Federation of Nigeria, has mandated the government, as a matter of right, provide education for the people. So that is another dimension to it. So the people can actually now come under the African Charter to say, look, under this article, under you are supposed to provide this, provide that, And other legislation, other secondary legislation like the Universal Basic Education, the UBEC law, which provides that education for children is free. So those are some of the legislation. But again, people have also argued that in all of this, the supremacy of the Constitution still stands. So to guarantee all of this, the National Assembly should, as a matter of fact, expunge that whole the section 6, subsection 6, paragraph C, so that the fundamental objective and direct principles of state policies will become enforceable. Because without them, without good education, without good environment, we cannot enjoy the right contained in Chapter 4. So I quite agree with the position of my co-guests regarding the entirety of Chapter 14, Section 14, and particularly the entirety of Chapter 2 of the Constitution.
All right. Thank you very much, Barrister Joseph, for that wonderful submission. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to dive into the conversation more deeper before we round up. And when we come back from the break, I'll read the comment section. So please take a moment. If you're watching, you have any question, you can ask your questions. You've heard what the two guests have said about Section 13 and partly Section 14, and in reference to Chapter 4 of the Constitution and Chapter 2. All right, we'll take a quick break and we'll come back and continue. So send your message, keep sharing if you haven't shared yet, so that more people can come and watch this show and learn from the great minds here. All right, my people, you have seen this poster shared for about past 3-4 months, and also some jingle. The Global Coalition for Security and Democracy in Nigeria was supposed to be hosting first national quiz competition 31st of this month, and the application deadline was last month, and we collected some application, and I was the project administrator for this national quiz. So, but unfortunately, or fortunately, the GCSDN, the board of directors of GCSDN have decided to postpone this quiz until in next year, 2023, possibly mid of next year. So with that change, it's not going to work well with my schedule. So that's for that being said, that means I will not be the administrator of the future quiz or part of the planning of the future quiz. So that is the information I want to put out there, so that I'm no longer the project administrator of the quiz due to conflict in timeline of postponement from the initial date of 31st October 2022 to now some other date in 2023. Hope this information meets you well. I'm sorry for any inconveniences it has caused you, hoping that the quiz will be this month, but it has been postponed to 2023. So hopefully whoever is going to be the administrator or the coordinator will do a good job in making sure it's a success. Thank you very much. And that is the information I want to put out there. And let's get back to the show. Okay, welcome back to the show. Let me take some comments. Right. Rachel Osazua say hello everyone. Hello Rachel. It's good to have you here. Do you have any questions on what we're talking about, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Section 13 and Section 14? And if you have any question, please do not hesitate to ask, and so that I can learn. Because I realize the more you ask questions, then the better you can learn in the process. Questioning enriches learning. Okay, so that's the only comment we've had so far. So let me take a quick read of some subsection of section 14, and I will ask my two guys some more questions. Section 14 said the Federal Republic of Nigeria shall be a state based on the principles of democracy and social justice. It is hereby accordingly declared that sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria, from whom government through this constitution derive all its authority. And that is a powerful statement. And whenever I read that, it makes me cry there, because it's like our constitution have given us power, but we're not utilizing our power. What is going on? So please, I want to hear your reaction about this. Let's start with you. What is your reaction about the powers that the constitution have given the ordinary man, given to the people of Nigeria? And this is not approved. You see, Maxwell, are you there?
Yes, I'm very much here. I didn't know the question was for me. Okay. Now, the introductory part of section 14, which is subsection 1, talks about that the state the Nigerian state shall be based on the principles of democracy and social justice. The question becomes that what are the principles of democracy and social justice? We just celebrated our 62nd year of independence, and of course, we're a democratic society, but are we truly democratic? That is the question. And I was engaged in this same discussion. When we talk about principles of democracy, we're talking about the accountability of government, we're talking about a free, regular, and fair electoral process, about human rights, we're talking about the enforcement of the generality of the principles of rule of law, adherence to the separations of powers. All things reflect the principles of democracy. So all state policy, Nigeria as a state, adhere to the principles of the democracy, making sure that if an election is enshrined, that there is strict adherence of the rule of law, that there is transparency and accountability with several arms of government and other principles that we could talk about under democracy. And speaking of social justice, that there is a justice system within the state. So Nigeria must conform to the provision of this section. And just to talk about section 2, that declares the sovereignty of people, or sovereignty belongs to the people, and that the people actually reserve all powers from which the constitution derives its authority. So just to throw a lot of light on it would be that the people are the ultimate. Some people would say that the constitution is the ultimate, but the people are the ultimate, because without the people, the constitution cannot derive its powers. So if the people do not reserve or do not vest their powers on the provisions of the constitution, they do not agree. The preamble of the constitution agreeing that we as the people come together to make laws, the proper governance of the state of Nigeria. So if the people decide that we are removing these powers from the constitution and putting it on something else, on someone else, it stands. So the constitution derives power from the people, and every provision of the constitution must be adhered by everybody, because it's like vesting your power. If I give you the power to this space, you now own power in the real sense of it. You can decide how this power is enjoyed. So the people, the government must make sure that it performs its duties according to the provision of this constitution, in line with the principles of democracy, in line with principles of social justice, making sure that the security and welfare of people are upheld. So I guess I would just stop there for now before we look at other subsections of the said section 14.
Thank you very much for that wonderful submission, UC Maxwell. One thing you mentioned, you tried to find, you asked the question, is Nigeria truly democratic? That is a very important question, which I've asked myself so many times, and I always come up with the answer, no, Nigeria is not truly democratic. We are working our way towards democracy, to become a democratic society, to become a democratic nation or a democratic country, but we have not gotten there yet, because the institutions of democracy is non-functional in Nigeria. For we to call ourselves a democratic society or a democratic country, the institution of democracy is supposed to work. Our election is supposed to be free and fair. And political parties are supposed to be scrutinized very closely and make sure they follow the Electoral Act very well. But right now, they don't follow the Electoral Act in total. And our elections are not free and fair. And then the benefit of democracy, the people of Nigeria do not enjoy the dividends of democracy. So how can we come and say that Nigeria is a democratic country? Nigeria is not a democratic country. With that being said, I'll take a subsection, then I'll ask Barrister the next question. The next subsection says, the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government, and the participation by the people in their government shall be ensured in accordance with the provisions of this Constitution. See, that is what the Constitution says. So I would like to hear from Barrister Joseph. Do you think that the government is in conformity with that provision of the Constitution? That the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government, and the participation of the people in their government shall be ensured. Is our participation ensured in our government? And is the government fulfilling its primary responsibility to secure the life and property of the people?
Well, looking at Nigeria, looking at the history of democracy in Nigeria, I think we can only say that the welfare, the security, and the well-being of the people being the paramount duty of government has remained in theory, because there is no genuine step towards making sure that the welfare of the people is guaranteed in Nigeria. Starting from looking at when we returned back to democracy in 1999 till date, is it the human rights abuse we should talk about? Is it the incessant killing we should talk about? Is it the gross insecurity we should talk about? Is it the gross inadequacy of infrastructure, or the decay in infrastructure that we should talk about? Is it the disregard for rule of law through disobedience of court orders by the executive that we should talk about? Or the brazen abuse of legislative powers by the legislator that we should talk about? There is no part of government, or there is no part of the society that will say is receiving a fair share from the government. That is why I said that statement has remained in theory till date, because from 2012 till date, well over 1-point-something million people have been killed in Nigeria. You know, where then lies the security? The Chibok girls till date, nothing has been done. You know, a lot of mass killing that has taken place in Nigeria, nothing has been done. You know, and in all of this, the government keep telling us that they are on top of it, they are concerned about it. So where then lies the concern of government? Where then lies the political willpower? Our resources are harnessed, sold without commensurate development that will guarantee the well-being of the people. So that statement, in my own mind, with every sense of humility, is a theoretical statement. There is nothing practical, or there is nothing genuine. There is no commitment to that statement. It's quite sad. In a country, arrested a suspect, took it to the police station just for police to tell me that the suspect escaped. And the reasons advanced for that is because there is no perimeter fence around the police station. They don't have a cell. They don't have a police van. A lot of... So that is just one aspect. So the welfare of the people is not the paramount duty of the government of Nigeria, but the welfare of certain individual is the paramount welfare, is the paramount concern or duty of the government of the day. That is what they have made us to believe, and that is what we are seeing.
Thank you very much, Barrister Joseph, for that wonderful submission. Let's take a few more sections of the Constitution. We are still in the discussion, the power on the people, focus on Section 13 and 14 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. I've had two wonderful guests given wonderful submissions using their legal minds, because that is their field and they are good at what they do, to educate each and every one of us, educated us as Nigerians to understand that what is the provision of the Constitution and to be aware of the power that lays in the hands of the citizen. It's in the Constitution. We're not making this up. We're not just out of our figment of imagination stating, oh, the power to the people, power belongs to the people. No, our Constitution guarantees in Section 14, subsection 2, that the Constitution derive its, let me read it, that I don't want to paraphrase, I want to read word to word here. Yeah, said, sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria, from whom government through this Constitution, not say some power, it's all its power and authority. That is what the Constitution says in Section 14, subsection 2. So we want you to be aware of this. We want you to know this. We want you to hold on to this and apply it and demand to apply. Exercise your power. Do not let your power lay dormant and let the government exercise too much power over you as a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Okay? So very, very important. So let's keep going. So this subsection 3 now says the composition of the government of the Federation or any office, agency, and the conduct of its affairs shall be carried out in such a manner as to reflect the federal character of Nigeria and the need to promote national unity and also to command national loyalty, thereby predominance from a few state or from a few ethnic or from a few sectional group in the government. Many of you have had federal character. This is what the Constitution is saying about that. I will let guest UC Maxwell to explain this concept of federal character and tell us if it's been a reality in our country, Nigeria, or not.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, if you take a look at Section 14, sub 2, paragraph C of the Constitution, it ensures that the people must participate in government. So that government is not reserved for probably one person, but to be a collection of people who shall participate, and this participation shall be ensured in accordance with the provisions of this Constitution. Now, what are the provisions of this Constitution that determines the participation of people in government? We'll take a look at subsection 3, which is where you derived your question from. That in the composition of government, of the federation, of the state, of agencies, of parastatals, of ministries, whatever they may be, under the governance of Nigeria, that it be carried out to represent the federal character. Now, what is federal character? Federal character, in a very simple term, is just to make sure that the character of the federal is, or the federal government is characterized by the participation of people from different tribes, different states, different ethnic groups, different religions, different sections of the country. Very, very important to note. Make sure that the government does not throw a searchlight on only a particular place, so that there is no predominance of people. So in a government, there is no predominance of the Igbos over the Yorubas, the Hausa, the Igbos, the Jaws, the Edos, and the like. Or there is no predominance of the Hausas over another tribe in Nigeria. Or there is no predominance of people from Katsina over people from Lagos State, people from Ogun State, or regions. There's no predominance of people from the north or northwest over other people from the south or whatever region in the south. So that is what the constitution, or the drafters of the constitution, envisaged the fact that by people who have multiplicity of languages, multiplicity of ethnic groups, multiplicity of tribes, so therefore there must be proper selection of people. If the president is to select his ministers, he must make sure that they reflect every state within Nigeria, every region, every tribe within Nigeria. When he appoints what they call now permanent secretaries and the like in several ministries, when he's supposed to appoint leaders of all agencies, they must reflect every state in Nigeria or every tribe, so that there is predominance of one over one. And we are seeing that it is in the current Nigerian system. And that's why a lot of groups are calling for cessation. There's a group IPOP calling for cessation. There's a group Oduduwa calling for cessation. There are the calling for cessation. A lot of people are calling for cessation from the Nigerian states. And these are the reasons. Because the provisions of Section 14 of Section 3 have not properly been adhered to or been implemented in the appointment of people into governance. So it is something that the government, be the government and other governments who should be coming after this. Of course, we are going into a very serious and pivotal electoral process, that they make sure that these things are checked and corrected within the Nigerian state to avoid several protests for cessation.
Thank you very much, UC Maxwell, for that wonderful submission and explaining to us that Nigeria currently, as it is not reflecting the federal character in its appointment in different agencies of government. So, and this is a reality, and it became you see in the military arm of military forces, you can see it in different agencies of government. It's the leaders, people heading different are from one region of the country or one group in this country, and that does not reflect the federal character as has been prescribed by our constitution. I will take a few comments. I think we'll have a few more comments that came in while UC Maxwell was speaking. So we'll take the comment and then we'll do a closing remark from both UC Maxwell and Barrister Joseph, and then we'll end the show. So we've spent 43 minutes. I don't want to spend more than 45 here. Okay. Temi Twiggy, I don't know if I pronounced it correctly. The people are the government. For as long as the people keep running after the money bags, Nigeria will never move forward. You are very correct, Temi. And I hope people stop running for the money back and stop selling their conscience. Rather, vote for the right candidate that know that is going to move the country for the executive that's going to implement the law as it is and implement it effectively to ensure that when the constitutional power belongs to the people, sovereignty, that the government listens and then ensure to listen to what the people are saying and try to take in their policy in their country. Thank you very much. And this one is from Robert. Hello, everyone, just waking up in Melbourne. Is from Australia? Well, thank you, Robert, for joining Melbourne. And I hope you keep coming back. If you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to ask before we round off today's show. So now I'll hand over the mic to UC Maxwell as the last speaker to give us a closing remark. Just 30 seconds closing remark based on our conversation today and your advice to our fellow Nigerians.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to close the entire conversation from my side, I would say that directive principles, the fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy is a very, very important chapter in the Constitution. Although I frown at the fact that Section 6 of 6 paragraph C of the Constitution has made sure that this chapter is not enforceable in our courts. However, I call on government to see that it implements every provision of Chapter 2. And for the sake of the sections which we consider today, Section 14, which actually gives power in the people and makes sure that government, during its appointment, during its selection processes, upholds and promotes a sense of belonging and loyalty amongst all the people of the Federation, all the people of Nigeria. They must continue to uphold this because we are in a very, very critical time in our democracy. It's funny that since 1914, since the amalgamation, since the independence in 1960, after 62 years of independence, a lot of sections of Nigeria are still calling for cessation. So these are some of the problems we have in Nigeria that needs to be checked and make sure that a law are put in place, put in people on basis of provisions of this section, put people from different states, do not make a predominance of one state or one region or one tribe or one religion over the others in the selection process in Nigeria. I will stop there. Thank you so much for the opportunity to respond to the provisions of the Constitution on this interview.
Thank you very much, UC Maxwell. Over to you, Barrister Joseph. 30 seconds closing remark.
Yeah, power belongs to the people. And it is from the people that government derives powers from. And one of our commentators rightly observed that we should shun money bags. So I say 2023 is offering us a very good opportunity for us to exercise our power as a people by voting in leaders who will make sure that the social contract they have between them and the people will be fully executed. By that, the fundamental objectives and direct principles of state policies, which basically about the welfare of the people, will become their paramount concern. Let's not throw that chance away as the campaigns have been opened in Nigeria. Let us close our eyes and open our mind to the respective candidates.
Thank you very much, Barrister Joseph. People, my fellow Nigerians, you guys have had this wonderful, great mind, great legal mind. Help us unbundle Section 13 and Section 14 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended, and have given you a word of advice as to forge ahead in this electioneering period. So please, 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 at the beguna, in the name of God Almighty, where would they serve? Please listen, exercise your power. The Constitution made it clear, abundantly clear, but I'll read it again because our section is so powerful. Section 14, subsection 2. It says, sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria. It's not to the people of Congo. We're talking about Nigeria, our country, our beloved country, our fatherland. The sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria, from whom government, through this constitution, derives all, I want to stress that again, all its powers and authority. So my fellow Nigerians, please wake up and exercise your power. Exercise your sovereignty, because it's what you say that will happen. So stop being like nonchalant about exercising your power, about rising up to the occasion and elect people that will listen to you. You are the boss here. We are the boss. Elect people, be the boss, be the true boss, and elect people that will listen to us and do what ought to be done. Okay? Thank you very much. And that's where we end today's show. I will see you next Tuesday. Thank you, UC Max, for coming. Thank you, Barrister Joseph, for coming. Have a wonderful evening.